Good morning. This is R.N. Bhaskar from BKBB. This is the place where you can watch every week a policy analysis, a small business story occasionally, and a conversation occasionally. But at this time, at 8:50 in the morning, we talk about news behind the news. First, thank you very much for being with us. Second, my usual reminders. Do click the subscribe button if you have not clicked it already. Click the like button. It helps us in algorithms. And most important, please tell every friend of yours about us. We need our audience to grow, especially because we talk about things that very few people talk about. And before we begin, let me first introduce my co-anchors here today. There's Katya. Welcome, Katya. Then there's Anurag. Welcome, Anurag. And there's Isha. Nice to see you, Isha. And today, we're going to discuss 4 topics. Just a reminder, at the end of the session, we carry questions in the limited time available, and we try to respond. But today, we've got 4 stories, so I don't know how much time we'll have at the end. But please do remember that we do carry responses to comments. The first bit, let's look at the titles that we're going to cover today. The first story, is a very interesting one on the new arms bazar, which is churning all of a sudden. The second one is on how the markets are going topsy-turvy. And the third one is basically on inflation. Has it come down? Has it remained high? And the fourth one is a remarkable survey by SIDBI on MSMEs in India and what they require. But let's go to the first story. The story is very short. The Indo-Pak war, it's from Bloomberg. The Indo-Pak war suddenly saw the demonstration of Chinese weaponry in actual armed theater. Till now, it was really theoretical. There were only trials. There were demonstrations. This was an actual theater where the Chinese arms performed. And that has impressed many. And inquiries have suddenly surged. And you can see the spread of Chinese arms across the world. The largest, of course, the darkest one is Pakistan. But what will this churn mean? Please look at the chart on the right. China is already the second largest arms exporter. But the difference between number 1 and number 2 is quite significant. Will that narrow? Let's see. Incidentally, India, which is not in this number 10, this year will come among the top 10 exporters of arms. So there's a lot of churn in the arms market, and China has shown what its arms can do. Thanks. That's my story. Let's go to the second story, which is Katya's story.
Thank you, sir. As you know, between wars, bullets, and ceasefires of both actual wars as well as trade wars, is vacillating the market extensively. One day it's going down 2,500 points. One day it's going up to 1,281 points. Then it's going down again, as well. And and there is extensive profit booking, extensive volatility, which is coming to the market. This is adding on top of it the already past trade wars that are happening. So this daily cues, daily, weekly, even actually not even weekly, daily cues are actually moving the markets extensively. This is bad news for investors who want to stay in the market for the long term. And then there is a lot of churn in the portfolios of people also. I do not sure whether it's good or bad for the market, but that is how it is as of now. And it's been going on for a long time, because even the US-China truce has come with a 90-day tag. So our own pause also comes up with a 90-day tag. So there is a lot of uncertainty still, and then there is more uncertainty on top of uncertainty, which is also coming over. FIs are doing something very interesting. They have cleared a lot of their short positions and going long, which actually seems like an interesting move to make, because it's very, very hard to predict what happens in the short term. On the long term, there is obviously hope that it will stabilize. Thank you. Back to you, sir.
Thank you very much. You're right. The markets are absolutely seesawing, and there are developments in Europe. Macron threatened Russia. Absurd, but that's what reality is. And Saudi Arabia dangling its own possibilities before the US. Let us see
Right.
what happens. Fascinating times. But there's another one, which is an India specific story, which is being brought to you by Anurag on inflation. Anurag, can we have your story?
Good morning. Today's report is about India's retail inflation, which saw its lowest dip in April since July 2019. We will highlight the key indicators which led to the ease in inflation and what could be expected in the future. The year-on-year Consumer Price Index (CPI) for April 2025 was recorded at 3.16%. According to the data released by the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation The April figures reflect a decline of 0.18% from 3.34% in March, marking a steady easing in prices. The CPI-based inflation has now stayed below the RBI's medium-term target of 4% for the third consecutive month. The inflation in food prices, which accounts for nearly half of the consumption basket, slowed to 1.78% from 2.69% in March, its lowest since October 2021. The most significant dip was seen in vegetable prices, which continued their downward trend, falling 11% year on year, compared to a 7.04% fall in March. Along with that, the grocery prices, which dipped 0.4%, affected by pull downward in part by a big 12.7% fall in prices of eggs. It was the biggest decline in food cost at home since September 2020. When it comes to geographies, the rural areas experienced a food inflation of 1.85%, whereas the urban area saw a slightly lower figure of 1.64%. Moreover, according to India's Wholesale Price Index, Kerala recorded the highest combined year-on-year inflation rate of 5.94%, followed by Karnataka, Jammu Kashmir, Punjab, and Tamil Nadu. Telangana reported the lowest at 1.26%. The other key aspects, such as inflation in education services, rose to 4.13% from 3.98%, and the inflation in food and light rose to 2.92% from 1.342%. Last month, the RBI lowered its key policy rates for a second consecutive time, and indicated more rate cuts by challenging its policy stance to accommodative from being neutral. And in the next meeting of RBI's Monetary Policy Committee, which is scheduled for June 4th or 6th, the experts suspect that the rates would be further lowered down. The repo rate is currently at 6%. Another important aspect to consider is the temporary lowering of tariffs by US and China, which helps in controlling the highlighted uncertainty and volatility in the global economic environment and improving investor sentiments. What's your take on this, sir?
Inflation numbers may have come down, but at the street level, people are still complaining of higher prices. Auto fares have increased, taxi fares have increased. Vegetable prices may have declined in statistical terms, but on the streets, vegetable prices still remain high. Let's see. Hopefully, the statistical data will percolate to the street level. But that takes me to the next story, and that is Isha's story about a remarkable survey that India has conducted.
Hello, thank you for joining in. So today I'm going to bring you a analysis of the report by SIDBI. So, according to the report by the Small Industries Development Bank of India, lack of access to timely and adequate credit and shortage of manpower are amongst the key challenges faced by micro, small, and medium scale enterprise or MSMEs. After surveying about 2,000 MSMEs from across 19 different sectors, the report comes to the conclusion that despite comprehensive policy initiatives to support the growth of MSMEs, they do not have adequate credit when they need it. About 3% of the total borrowings of MSME is from informal sources, while the numbers stand at 2% for small and medium enterprise and about 12% for micro enterprises. This is indicative of a failure of policy initiatives to support the credit needs of such small enterprises in a timely manner. Furthermore, the study broadly estimates that the sector still has an addressable credit gap of about 24% or 30 lakh crores. The gap is higher in services sector with at 27% and even higher at 35% for women-owned MSMEs. Furthermore, the lack of skilled manpower is another major challenge faced by the MSME sector that has been majorly inhibiting the growth. Targeted policy initiatives that support the growth of MSMEs will not only help the economy grow, but also provide employment opportunities, especially for rural communities, and can even help support social justice and women empowerment initiatives. So, some changes in the policy, I think, are the need of the hour. Very interesting facts found from this report. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. So.
Ishu, you're right. The MSME sector is the backbone of India. It employs almost 90% of the workforce. The others are in the organized sector, which is a small percentage of India's industrial growth. And when the MSMEs can't get credit and they can't get skilled manpower, you have a problem. The skilled manpower goes back to the basics of education, where the government has failed miserably. Even your ITIs do not impart the kind of education that industries want. And without credit, without education and skills, you are going to have a problem with the most important segment where industry and manufacturing are concerned. But thank you, Isha. That was a very valuable report. And it's a report that everyone should look at. And that, in a way, brings me to the end of today's session, except that I have got some questions, some responses that are coming in. I'll try to deal with them. But before I go there, just a reminder again, do click the subscribe button. Click the like button. And very crucial, tell everyone you know about us, about this channel, which talks about news behind the news. And one of the first comments that has come in is about the arms bazaar. Do you see the Eastern world picking up in the arms race? Well, already China's there as number 2. India's crept up into the first 10 positions, which is remarkable. From nowhere, it's come up to 10. But I see a bigger churn coming in the market. Most of the Western weaponry, including those of USA, have failed in the Ukraine war theater. And some of them have proved inadequate even in the Middle East wars, where Russian weaponry, Iranian weaponry, and Houthi weaponry managed to overwhelm the equipment supplied by the West. So obviously, militaries worldwide will rethink their purchase options. The arms basket is going to change globally. And that is where it'll be interesting to see how the world reacts. There is a second question that's come in, and that is, what strategies can MSMEs pursue to cope with the shortages? There are only the MSMEs themselves are recipients. They don't have the capital wherewithal to go into robotics at the moment. Maybe 5 years later, when robots become cheap and ubiquitous, they'll go into robotics. But otherwise, we have a situation where skilled manpower is a function of educational institutions, government policies, and the environment from where skilled manpower comes. When an engineer has to pick up a job as a liftman, it means he's got an engineering degree, but he doesn't have the skills. And that is why you need to improve the quality of education. Quality of education comes up when ideology takes a back seat. And that is where the government seems to have failed. Those are the strategies that India needs. The MSMEs have to survive. They will try to bring in as much equipment to reduce the dependence on labor. But there's a limit to that. They're small. They don't have the capital. And when it comes to skilled manpower, you can't go with unskilled manpower, can you? It'll destroy the reputation of whatever they produce. They are the receiving end. Their strategy is increase slowly, carefully, to make sure that no matter what happens, you have both. Okay, and that brings me to a third question. And the third question is again very interesting. It's a question where people are talking about inflation. Is inflation really down? I don't know. As I said earlier, inflation appears to be down, but the street reality is quite different. And that brings me to the last question, which is the markets. Where do you think the markets are going? I don't know. I'm not a forecaster. I don't tip people about what stocks to buy. I know the markets are seesawing. I expect the situation to remain turbulent. Which way they'll go, I can't predict. But thanks for watching the show and for being with us. Have a great day ahead. All the best to you. Do well.